tweet from Colorado State Patrol last month really got us thinking. When is it time for older drivers to hang up the keys?
Well, tonight, so many of you already are sharing your thoughts on this. Florine, for one, writes, when to hang up the car keys? When they start driving like millennials, she says. Seniors are far less likely to engage in risky behaviors like texting while driving.
And Brett writes, the problem is absolutely horrendous and such a danger to society. I think when you turn 60, you should have to undergo a driving test twice a year.
Well, tonight, Denver 7's Megan Lopez takes a 360 look at whether there is an age at which people should stop driving.
There's one thing traffic and time have in common. They're constantly changing, and the more time drivers spend behind the wheel, the more experienced they become. But as time goes on, drivers also change. Experience sometimes can't compete with aging. Colorado State Patrol recently reported that older drivers were involved in 129 deadly crashes in 2018.
So let's get behind the 360 wheel and ask, when is it time to give up driving? Because we're all going to reach that senior status someday. Some people would like to see more done to make sure seniors aren't posing a danger on the roads. Others say these drivers are safe, and that's just a stereotype. AAA says seniors themselves support more testing, while one professor says losing the car keys can have a big impact on their quality of life.
First, some context. The population of older drivers is growing fast.
The fastest growing demographic on American roadways is aging baby boomers.
There are some additional rules for drivers 65 and older. They have to renew their license every 10 years like everyone else, but they have to physically go into the DMV every other renewal. Once there, a series of questions will determine if they need to retest. Family members, doctors, or police can also request for that retest. But there's no age when you're forced to retake it.
This is tough. Sorry.
There's one day in October.
My dad was a good friend. He was my dad.
Chris Spanos will never forget.
He was on a ride with several of his friends. He was coming around a kind of a corner.
The day an 82-year-old driver,
The person who was at a stop sign,
killed his father.
clearly didn't look, and she turned right into him. In my opinion, she shouldn't have been on the road shortly after she was driving again. I was pretty angry about that.
And since that day, Chris has been advocating for more testing of older drivers.
A driving test, a written test, an eye test, something.
R55.
He'd also like to see them physically go into the DMV more often.
Every 5 years or every 8 years, if it saved my dad, it would be worth it.
So it's a trial testing.
Dr. Carolyn DeGespe of CU Public Health has been studying older drivers for years.
Older people in general have greater risk of injury.
As people age, their mobility, sight, even reaction times decrease. But there's a certain pride that comes with driving.
Particularly among men, driving is somewhat associated with how you view yourself.
Older drivers are also less likely to use taxis or ride shares.
Maintaining independence is the most important concern for older people in general.
So giving up the car keys isn't easy.
When we look at over 65, they aren't the riskiest driving population.
AAA data shows there were 200,000 crashes nationwide in 2016 involving drivers over 65. 3,500 of them were deadly. And the idea of additional testing is something AAA says many older drivers agree with.
80% of drivers over the age of 75 years think that drivers their exact age should have to go through a medical test before they can renew their driver's license. That seems sensible.
It's kind of a misnomer that older drivers are very dangerous.
For Angela Cortez from AARP Colorado, it's a matter of perception.
I don't think that people 65 plus are going out there and causing all of the fatalities.
And she says older drivers aren't the most dangerous ones on the road.
They're nowhere near younger adults, especially younger males. That's the largest group of accidents that result in fatalities.
They also tend to decrease their driving on their own.
They start realizing that the traffic is too much for them, and they start limiting their driving themselves.
AARP does offer refresher courses for older drivers.
And it helps you because cars have changed, the roads have changed.
And training for families on how to talk to their loved ones about not driving.
It was a process, and a lot of people were involved.
The time to hang up the car keys isn't an easy one. Colorado laws don't determine when is the right time. Everyone we spoke with agreed on two things, though. There will be a time where we will all have to give up driving, but there's no one age to do it. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
So interesting. And there may not be a perfect age to give up the car keys, but there may be a right time to start talking about it. We want to hear your thoughts on this, and thanks to those of you who already have sent us your thoughts. And please email us 360@thedenverchannel.com.